Waitress saved 3 daughters in a café from a millionaire, then discovered a hidden secret. In the middle of a bustling café, a waitress becomes an unexpected hero when she saves 3 helpless daughters from the clutches of a dangerous millionaire. But what she uncovers next will change everything. It was a rainy evening in the city café. The soft clinking of cups, the aroma of fresh coffee, and the chatter of customers filled the air. Among them sat a wealthy millionaire, sharply dressed, his presence commanding silent attention. Nobody suspected that danger lurked beneath his charming smile. When 3 innocent daughters walked in, no one could imagine the storm about to unfold until a young waitress stepped forward. The millionaire's temper flared without warning. He lashed out at the girls, his voice echoing across the café. Fear froze the crowd, but the waitress refused to stand still. With quick courage, she pulled the daughters to safety, shielding them from harm. The café went silent, shocked at her bravery. In that very moment, as she confronted the man, she noticed something strange, a hidden envelope slipping from his pocket, and a name inside that connected her own life to his in ways she never dreamed possible. The millionaire wasn't just a cruel stranger. He was the father of the 3 girls, a man who had hidden his darkest secrets behind wealth and power. For years, he had lived in the shadows of his own lies, disguising himself as a respectable figure in society. But that evening in the café, when his anger exploded and his cruelty was laid bare, the truth began to unravel. The waitress, shaken but brave, had not only saved the girls from harm, she had unknowingly stepped into the heart of a mystery that stretched far beyond the walls of that café. As the chaos settled, a folded envelope slipped from the millionaire's pocket, landing near the waitress's feet. Curiosity and fear battled within her, but something told her this paper was no ordinary document. When she opened it with trembling hands, her eyes widened. Inside were legal papers and letters, proof of a hidden fortune, betrayal within the family, and a truth buried for decades. The millionaire had not been protecting his daughters. He had been hiding them, covering up a scandal that could shatter his reputation forever. The waitress's heart pounded as she read further. There, in faded ink, appeared a name she had known all her life, her own mother's name. At first, she thought it was a coincidence, but the more she read, the more the lines of fate became clear. Her mother had once been tied to the millionaire's past, caught in the very secrets he had tried so desperately to erase. Suddenly, everything made sense. The strange familiarity she felt toward the daughters, the connection she could not explain when she looked into their frightened eyes. The shocking twist left her breathless. She was not just a bystander rescuing strangers. She was entangled in the same bloodline, connected to these girls in a way that destiny had hidden until this very moment. The daughters weren't simply victims she had saved. They were her own flesh and blood, bound together by the same mother's love. In that instant, the café was no longer just a place of fear. It became the stage where truth collided with lies, where lost family ties were rediscovered, and where a waitress discovered she was far more than she ever imagined. Tears began to replace the fear that had gripped the room only moments before. The 3 daughters, their eyes swollen from crying, clung tightly to the waitress, as if she were the only safe harbor left in their shattered world. For the first time in years, they felt the warmth of protection, the comfort of knowing someone stood by them not out of duty, but out of pure courage and compassion. The waitress, trembling yet resolute, wrapped her arms around them, whispering that everything would be all right. She had stepped into danger with nothing but her heart to guide her, and now she stood as their shield. And, without realizing it until that very moment, their sister by destiny, the millionaire, once a figure of authority and dominance, stood broken. His mask of power and wealth began to crumble before the very eyes of the crowd. The arrogance that once filled his voice was replaced by silence, the emptiness of a man who had built his life on lies and cruelty. His riches, once a source of pride, now seemed meaningless compared to the truth that had surfaced. In the stillness, His empire of secrets collapsed like sand, slipping through open hands. The cafe itself seemed transformed. The place that had moments ago been filled with fear now became a sanctuary of truth and healing. Customers who had watched in shock now looked on with tears in their eyes, touched by the waitress's bravery and the daughter's resilience. It was no longer just a cafe on a rainy evening. It had become the stage for redemption, for reunions, for a miracle that none had expected. In the end, it wasn't money, status, or power that prevailed. It was something far greater: love, courage and truth. The wealth that the millionaire had clung to all his life now lay meaningless in the shadow of his downfall. His voice, once filled with command and pride, was silent. The cafe that had witnessed his cruelty now bore witness to his collapse, and the truth of his emptiness was finally exposed. The daughters, trembling and broken, turned to the only person who had stood between them and despair, the waitress. They clung to her as if letting go would mean falling back into darkness. For them, she was no longer just a stranger who served tables. She was a savior who had risked everything to protect them. In her arms, they found comfort, warmth, and the bond of family they had long been denied. Their tears, once born of fear, now flowed with the relief of being seen, loved, and protected. For the waitress, the night changed everything. She had spent years living quietly in the background of other people's lives, unnoticed and uncelebrated. Yet in the face of cruelty, her courage shone brighter than gold. She discovered strength within herself that she had never known existed, the strength to stand up against power, to defend innocence, and to uncover a hidden truth that bound her life to the very girl she had saved. She was no longer just a waitress. She was a protector, a sister in destiny, and a living reminder that even the smallest voice can carry the greatest power. That night in the cafe became more than a terrifying incident. It became a story of rebirth. The cafe itself seemed transformed, as though its walls had absorbed the weight of what had happened. Customers who had watched in silence would never forget the courage they witnessed. The place where fear had echoed now carried an aura of hope, a memory that even in darkness light had triumphed. It was no longer just a cafe on a rainy evening. It had become the stage for love and truth to rise above cruelty. The cafe would forever be remembered, not for the shadow of fear that once gripped it, but for the miracle of reunion and courage that unfolded within its walls. That night, broken lives were pieced back together, and hope was born again. It stood as proof that no matter how strong evil may appear, it can never outshine the power of love. And in the most unexpected of places, and the most ordinary of hearts, light will always find a way to break through the darkness.